so tired. I got enough sleep last night, but for some reason, I just don't have any get up and go. Is there something that I need to do to give myself more pep, more go, so that I can get through my day? What do you think? If you said that I was hungry, you're probably right. All plants and animals on planet Earth need energy in order to survive. So what I did was I went in the kitchen and I made a sandwich. I made a ham, cheese, and Dorito sandwich with an apple. And I thought to myself, why is this food giving me energy? So I had to think about, where does the food come from? So first let's start with the bread on the sandwich. Bread mostly comes from wheat, and wheat is a plant. But why do plants give me energy? Where does a plant get energy from? All right, let me look at the rest of my sandwich. I had an apple. An apple's a plant. But why does it give me energy? Well, let's take a look at the rest of the sandwich. I put mayonnaise on the bread because I like that kind of thing. Mayonnaise actually comes mostly from eggs. Eggs come from chickens, and chickens eat corn and fruits and vegetables and even insects too. But why does eating eggs give me energy? Where does all that energy come from? Then I looked at the cheese. Cheese comes from milk. Milk comes from cows. Cows eat grass. But why does it give me energy when I eat it? And then last, the ham. Ham comes from pigs. Pigs eat just about anything, but we'll say that pigs eat corn, which is a plant. The main part of their diet is plants. But why does eating all those different foods give me energy? What is the major source of energy for all life on planet Earth? Do you know? If you said the sun, you're absolutely right. Plants have the ability to make their own energy. They do it through a very complicated process called Can somebody help me out? Photosynthesis. That's right. Your first and second grade science teachers are smiling if you came up with photosynthesis. That's the process by which plants use sunlight and actually turn it into sugar. Let's see how that affects me and me being tired and getting energy for myself. Every living thing on Earth needs energy to do what they do, such as move and grow. You need energy to walk, run, breathe, and play. The source of almost all of the energy used by living things is the sun. Without the sun, life on Earth wouldn't be the same. And it's amazing how the sun has been the beginning of so many of our science units. It's almost like without the sun, we wouldn't be talking about this at all. What would you do if you need energy to go climb a tree? You just don't stand out in the sunlight and wait to get energy. You eat food. So how does our energy come from the sun if we need to eat food for energy? That's where food chains come in. A food chain is the path that energy follows. That path starts with the sun and moves through organisms or living things. Here's an example of a food chain. Here we have Tibetan splendid grass. This producer is a grass that relies on sunlight for photosynthesis to make energy. This grass is food for several kinds of animals. And they use the word producer there. Does producer mean that you make something? I'm going to have to read further and see if I can figure that out. The plateau pika. This consumer is a very small mammal. They are herbivores. They feed on plants such as Tibetan splendid grass. Consumer. Producer. Consumer. Plants make their own food, and the pika eats the plants. Siberian weasel. This consumer is a carnivore. It feeds on a variety of small mammals, including plateau pikas. They didn't say the pika was a carnivore. They said it was an herbivore. I'm going to have to do more research on that too. And then there's the Eurasian lynx. This carnivore is the largest member of the lynx family. They often hunt deer, but they will also hunt smaller animals such as hares or Siberian weasels. Energy flows through this food chain, starting with sunlight. This sunlight is used by the Tibetan splendid grass to make the energy it needs to live and grow. Next, the plateau pika snacks on this Tibetan splendid grass. The pika gets the energy that was stored in the grass and uses it to move and grow. Eventually, the Siberian weasel catches and eats the pika. Now the weasel uses the energy stored in the pika to move and grow. But then along comes the Eurasian lynx that stalks and consumes the weasel. The lynx that gets the energy stored in the weasel so he can do things he needs to live. Just like the animals in this food chain, you eat food to get your energy. When we talk about food chains, there are some important words that we use to identify the living things that make up those food chains. Plants use sunlight for photosynthesis to make their food, so they are called producers. The Tibetan splendid grass is the producer in the example above. Next, we have consumers. Consumers are organisms that eat producers or other consumers to get energy. The plateau pika, the Siberian weasel, and the Eurasian lynx are all examples of consumers. An example of a desert food chain is below. Fill in the blanks under each organism with the word consumer or producer. And we have seeds from a Paula Verde tree. Would seeds from a tree be a producer or a consumer? If you said producer, that's right. All plants are producers, although there are a couple of exceptions, because they use sunlight in order to make their own food through photosynthesis. The desert mouse. Does a mouse make its own food? No, that would make it a consumer. Rattlesnakes love to eat mice, so that makes them a consumer also. Roadrunner. Birds. Do they make their own food? No, they certainly do not. That's the question you always have to ask between producers and consumers. So a roadrunner is also a consumer. There are three main types of consumers: herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. An herbivore is a consumer that only eats plants, like the plateau pika. A carnivore is a consumer that only eats meat, like the Siberian weasel, the Eurasian lynx, and the rattlesnake. An omnivore is a consumer that eats both plants and meat, like most people do. Okay, so that's enough of that. I'm always going to read you that required part from the Phase 2 learning packs to make sure that you're getting all the information in that packet. And then we're going to take it to your homework assignment, which I am going to show you a picture of here. It is going to be your job. And this assignment is not due. This is actually part 1 of our next assignment that's going to be due in 2 weeks. So this is only part 1, just like we did with our adaptations project. You are going to make a food chain. You don't have to use a giant poster like this. You can just do it on a piece of notebook paper or whatever it is that you have. If you'd like to build a model or generate a model on your computer, you are also welcome to do that. First thing you're going to need to do is to pick an ecosystem. I chose forests because those are very common in Central Virginia, and I thought you would be the most familiar with them. Now, there's something really big in this poster that I did not label that I want you to pay attention to, and that is this. Why did I put this in the very top corner of my poster? Do you know? If you said, because that's where we get our energy from, the sun, you were absolutely correct. Now, in your poster, I need you to draw a producer, at least one. Can anyone find the producer that I have drawn in this poster? Let's see. The crazy old ball guy told me that producers were plants. They used photosynthesis in order to make their own food. So the only plant I see in this picture is the grass. Grass is a plant. It uses its chlorophyll, the green coloring, in order to turn sunlight into energy. Now, do animals eat grass? You bet they do, all kinds of them. In my ecosystem, I'm going to start with the grasshopper. The grasshopper is my first consumer. It is extremely well drawn compared to some of the animals in there, because I had to ask my wife, who's now laughing behind the camera, in order to assist me so that all of my animals would not look very, very similar to my grasshopper. Grasshopper, my first consumer, eats the grass in order to get its energy. This frog here, he's looking pretty hungry, and a grasshopper is a very tasty snack for a frog. My wife drew the frog. You don't even have to ask. So the frog is our first consumer, and it consumes the grasshopper in order to get its energy. Slithering along behind the frog, and I drew this one myself, ooh ah, yes, it's amazing, is the snake. The snake is going to use the frog in order to get its energy that it needs, which makes the snake a consumer. And flying above, we see these all the time out on the playground. They are all over Central Virginia. It kind of looks like a penguin, but it's actually a hawk, which is why I wrote the word hawk up here. The hawk is going to be our top consumer in this food chain because the hawk eats the snake eats the frog, and the frog eats the grasshopper. So to repeat, what you need to do for your science homework this week does not need to be turned in yet. We're going to add more to this in the following week before you submit your project. Is you need to choose an ecosystem. Maybe you want to use the ocean. Maybe you want to use the pond. Maybe you want to use your backyard. Maybe you want to use the Arctic. It's really up to you. Be creative with this. Choose an ecosystem, then choose one producer from that ecosystem that makes sense. For example, if I had a koala bear, I would not use an ocean ecosystem for that because that wouldn't make sense because koalas live in trees. So the animals that you choose for your ecosystem have to make sense within that ecosystem. You're going to choose one producer. I chose grass. Any type of plant would work for this. Then you need to show your first consumer. Your first consumer is the animal that's going to eat the producer. Next, you're going to need to show consumer number 2. Consumer number 2, our frog, is going to eat consumer number 1 in order to gain its energy. The frog eats the grasshopper. Then you're going to need to add consumer number 2. Actually, number 3. Consumer number 3 in my poster was the snake. The snake eats the frog. The frog who ate the grasshopper who ate the grass. This is how the sun's energy is transferred through our food chain. And then finally, we have our top consumer, the hawk. The hawk gets its energy because it eats the snake. The snake got its energy from eating the frog. The frog got its energy from eating the grasshopper. The grasshopper got its energy from eating the grass. And the grass got its energy through the magic of photosynthesis from our friend, the sun. So, once again, please complete your homework assignment sometime this week. If you have any difficulties with it, we can talk about it during one of our Zoom meetings, or we can schedule some office hours on Thursday in order to get this done. Remember, nothing needs to be turned in this week. This is only part 1 of our food change project, which we will complete together, as always, in the following week. Thank you and have a wonderful afternoon. Bye.